Before dawn touches the Pamirs, a fragile road hangs above rivers that have divided lives for generations. This is Tajikistan, where turquoise lakes shine above the clouds and villages endure near the limit of breath. Across this mountainous country, beauty rarely arrives alone. It travels beside isolation, danger, and astonishing human tenderness. What moves me most is how warmth survives inside homes, surrounded by distances that appear almost impossible to cross. Every valley leaves a question behind. Why did people remain? And what would be lost if they finally departed? To search for the answer, we follow Tajikistan's high roads into landscapes that test the body and quietly transform the heart. On a map, Tajikistan looks compact, enclosed between Afghanistan, China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, in the heart of Central Asia. On the ground, mountains fracture that small outline into valleys, whose inhabitants may live hours apart. Roughly 10.8 million people lived here in 2025, carrying remarkably diverse regional identities across difficult terrain. Tajik, a Persian language, preserves poetry, family memory, and emotional connections reaching far beyond modern borders. Independence came in 1991, but the civil war that followed left wounds, still remembered inside many households. Glacier-fed rivers now sustain farms, cities, and electricity, allowing distant snowfields to enter the routines of ordinary families. Dushanbe looks toward rapid change, while the eastern Pamirs continue measuring life through altitude, weather, and road access. The distance between those realities becomes visible on the Pamir Highway, our first passage into the country's hidden interior. The Pamir Highway clings to the landscape like a promise that nature has never agreed to keep. Known as part of the M41, the route crosses Gorno-Badakhshan through more than 700 kilometers of high terrain. Its modern form developed from older tracks, strategic passages, and engineering projects shaped by competing empires. Some passes rise above 4,000 meters, where engines weaken and every breath becomes noticeably shorter. The pavement repeatedly breaks into gravel, dust, and narrow shelves cut beside restless rivers. On one side, bare rock crowds the vehicle. On the other, the valley drops without offering reassurance. The road becomes most moving when a tiny truck crawls beneath cliffs large enough to swallow its engine noise. In that instant, travel feels profoundly vulnerable, as though every wheel must negotiate with the mountain before advancing. Drivers watch weather, fuel, tires, river levels, and approaching darkness with an attention ordinary highways rarely demand. Rockfalls, washouts, snow, and landslides can transform a planned journey into several uncertain days. Yet scattered houses and roadside settlements prove that this route carries medicine, food, school supplies, and family news. Cyclists and motorcyclists arrive seeking adventure, but local residents travel because daily life leaves no easier alternative. Tajikistan's mountains are not scenery behind the nation. They decide where water flows, roads survive, and families settle. The Pamirs dominate the east, while other ranges fold across the country in a dense architecture of stone. Ismail Samoni Peak rises to 7,495 meters, standing among the highest summits of the former Soviet world. Below those heights, glaciers store water that later descends toward farms and communities far beyond the snowline. Tajik National Park protects vast plateaus, deep gorges, hundreds of lakes, and a major concentration of glaciers. UNESCO recognized the park as World Heritage in 2013 for its exceptional landscapes and geological history. The western Pamirs are sharply cut by ravines, while the eastern Pamirs open into broad, cold highland deserts. Together, they feel like two emotions carved from one range, tension in the west and solitude in the east. The gorges compress the body with their closeness, while the plateaus release the eye into distances it cannot measure. Ancient tectonic forces remain active beneath the region, making earthquakes part of its continuing geological story. Wind removes loose soil, glacier-carved valleys, and rivers deepen corridors, already shaped across immense spans of time. Vegetation thins rapidly with altitude, until only tough grasses and low shrubs interrupt the mineral colors. Wildlife survives through concealment, migration, and extraordinary efficiency in terrain that offers little forgiveness. Marco Polo sheep, ibex, raptors, and elusive snow leopards inhabit parts of this demanding mountain system. Their presence adds a fragile pulse to landscapes that can initially appear almost lifeless. It is deeply moving to realize that these frozen heights quietly feed communities that may never see their source. What appears lifeless from above is therefore a reservoir of water, wildlife, memory, and unfinished geological power. But beauty here is never separated from risk, because avalanches and earthquakes can isolate entire valleys. Their magnificence becomes harder to romanticize once beauty and danger are understood as parts of the same mountain system. Deep within these ranges lies Gorno-Badakhshan, a region where geography has protected diversity while intensifying isolation. Gorno-Badakhshan occupies eastern Tajikistan, stretching across the country's most elevated and sparsely settled territory. Known as Jibao, the autonomous region contains high plateaus, glacier-fed rivers, narrow valleys, and widely separated communities. Korog serves as its administrative center, positioned beside the Panj River beneath steep mountain walls. From there, roads divide toward valleys whose languages, architecture, and customs developed through centuries of relative isolation. Several Pamiri languages are still spoken, enriching a cultural landscape far more diverse than maps first suggest. Many local communities follow Ismaili traditions, while sacred places and family customs give each valley a distinct character. This diversity feels painfully precious when one blocked road can isolate a language, a family, or an entire valley. Education, medical care, electricity, and communication all become more complicated when settlements are divided by mountains. At the same time, homestays and community tourism allow visitors to encounter the region through local households. After hours of cold and dust, tea, bread, and a warm room can feel more luxurious than any hotel. Hospitality then changes the Pamirs completely, turning an intimidating wilderness into a place held together by human welcome. The region also holds hundreds of cultural sites, from fortifications and shrines to petroglyphs and traditional houses. Each trace suggests that isolation never meant complete separation from trade, pilgrimage, scholarship, or political ambition. One of Gorno-Badakhshan's most formidable branches is Bartang, where the road follows a valley famous for resisting easy access. Entering it feels like leaving the last remaining assurance behind and trusting a river to lead deeper into uncertainty. Bartang opens as a narrow fracture in the mountains, where the river seems determined to reclaim every meter of road. The valley extends through Rushan toward the eastern Pamirs, linking scattered settlements with an exceptionally difficult road. Winter snow and avalanches can close it, while spring rockfalls and summer floods create different forms of danger. Official tourism information describes this route as one of the hardest and most hazardous in the Pamirs. That warning becomes believable when tire tracks squeeze between unstable slopes and water polished by glacial sediment. Villages appear on rare patches of workable land, where walls, orchards, and fields press close together. The farmers inspire profound respect, because every green field represents order patiently defended against unstable earth and water. Irrigation channels guide scarce water toward crops, revealing generations of observation hidden within simple earthworks. When the road fails, isolation affects food, medicine, schooling, repairs, and every ordinary promise made beyond the valley. Yet Bartang is not defined only by hardship, because music, hospitality, and family networks give endurance a human rhythm. The surrounding peaks often block the wider horizon, making each bend feel like a question with no visible answer. Then the gorge briefly opens, and sunlight reaches fields that seemed impossible only moments earlier. That sudden sunlight can feel almost merciful, arriving exactly when the enclosing rock has made the valley seem endless. South of these severe passages, the Wakhan Valley opens beside the Panj and looks across toward Afghanistan. The Wakhan Valley stretches along the Panj River, where Tajikistan faces Afghanistan, across a narrow moving boundary. Fields and villages occupy terraces beneath mountains that rise toward the Hindu Kush and southern Pamirs. For centuries, this corridor carried merchants, pilgrims, armies, ideas, and languages between larger civilizations. Today, fragments of fortresses and shrines still watch over roads that continue to feel strategically exposed. Across the river, Afghan houses sometimes appear close enough to distinguish walls, paths, and cultivated plots. The view creates an unsettling intimacy, because two national realities share one current, one sunrise, and similar mountain shadows. Few borders make separation feel so emotional. Families remain visually close, yet their daily worlds follow different histories. Wakhi communities have adapted agriculture, livestock keeping, architecture, and seasonal work to the valley's limited ground. Poplars mark settlements from afar, rising above mud brick homes and fields fed by carefully managed channels. Inside traditional houses, carved wood, layered spaces, and symbolic pillars connect domestic life with spiritual meaning. Tea and bread may appear modest, yet after the exposed road, their warmth can soften an entire day of distance. Ancient routes are easy to romanticize, yet travel here once carried exhaustion, taxation, conflict, and uncertainty. That harder history makes the surviving settlements feel less like relics and more like active negotiations with geography. Above one section of the valley, ruined towers emerge from a ridge and reveal the defensive logic of Yamchun Fortress. Climbing toward those walls turns Wakhan's beauty into a harder question about everyone who once fought to possess it. Yamchun Fortress occupies a strategic ridge above Wakhan, more than 3,000 meters above sea level. Its origins reach into the pre-Islamic history of the region, with later generations expanding and reusing its defenses. Remaining walls and towers follow the mountain's shape, turning natural elevation into a formidable system of surveillance. From the ruins, the Panj Valley spreads below, while Afghanistan rises beyond the opposite bank. The broken stone feels more honest than restoration, because centuries of weather have made power look vulnerable again. Wind passes through empty openings where guards once searched the horizon for caravans, rivals, and approaching armies. The fortress withholds many names, and that silence makes its surviving towers feel even more mysterious. Beyond Yamchun, the landscape climbs toward Alichur, where architecture disappears into a far broader test of survival. Alichur lies in the eastern Pamirs, where the land rises near 4,000 meters and trees largely disappear. The plateau extends in muted browns, pale grass, shallow rivers, and mountains that seem farther away than they are. Air pressure is lower, nights cool quickly, and wind can turn an ordinary stop into a physical challenge. The settlement survives through livestock, road traffic, public services, and connections with other high Pamir communities. Ethnic Kyrgyz families form an important part of the eastern Pamirs, contributing distinct language and pastoral traditions. Yaks, sheep, and goats convert sparse vegetation into food, fiber, transport, and household income. Alichur's deepest impression comes from the disciplined way people extract possibility from a landscape offering almost nothing freely. Fuel must be planned, water protected, animals monitored, and journeys timed around weather and road conditions. The houses look heartbreakingly small beneath the sky, yet the knowledge inside them is larger than any traveler's confidence. In summer, wet meadows introduce unexpected green into the cold desert and attract grazing herds. That short-lived green feels precious precisely because everyone knows how quickly abundance will close again. East of the plateau, Bulungkul gathers water and human life beside one of Tajikistan's harshest inhabited environments. Bulungkul lies around 3,700 meters above sea level in the eastern part of the Alichur Valley. The tectonic lake is relatively small, fed by a river, and springs emerging around its exposed shores. Its neighboring village endures severe winters that can reduce movement, work, and conversation to essential tasks. Low houses cluster near the water, their scale almost disappearing against the plateau and surrounding mountains. The lake changes character with weather, shifting from reflective blue to flat gray under fast-moving cloud. During colder months, ice closes its surface and turns the shoreline into a continuation of the plain. The transformation is beautiful but unsettling, as if the lake has sealed itself away from every human need. Residents depend on livestock, stored supplies, local knowledge, and roads that cannot always remain open. When wind controls the world outside, a heated room and a shared meal become expressions of protection and love. Nearby geothermal activity adds another surprising element to a landscape more often associated with cold. The meeting of frozen ground and rising warmth feels like a rare confession from an otherwise guarded landscape. Bulunkul's modest size makes its human presence intimate rather than monumental. Not far away, Yeşilkul expands that same highland water into a much larger field of green and blue. Yeşilkul stretches for roughly 25 kilometers across the eastern Pamirs, bordered by barren slopes and open sky. Its name means green lake, a description that becomes convincing when sunlight penetrates the clear, high-altitude water. The lake reaches about 4 kilometers in width, while deeper sections descend to around 50 meters. The Alachur River enters from the east, creating a vivid change of color near its mouth. Water temperatures remain cold even in warmer months, preserving the lake's severe mountain character. No dense forest softens the shoreline, so every variation in rock, wind, and cloud becomes visible. Its green surface feels almost defiant, refusing to accept the barren colors imposed by the surrounding desert. The unexpected color awakens genuine wonder, as though the plateau had protected one private season from the wider world. Old routes, grazing areas, and scattered signs of settlement show that the lake has never been entirely isolated. Yet human traces remain small enough for weather to reclaim the scene within minutes. When cloud shadows cross the water, the lake seems to divide into several landscapes at once. Its beauty never asks for applause. It waits quietly until patience allows the landscape to become intimate. The journey continues toward Murghab, where the high desert gathers roads, supplies, and people into a remote regional center. Murghab stands above 3,600 meters, surrounded by the wide, treeless terrain of the eastern Pamirs. The town developed from a strategic outpost and later became the main service center for surrounding highland communities. Roads arriving from Korog, Karakul, Alichur, and neighboring borders give Murghab an importance larger than its population. Shipping containers used as market stalls create one of the town's most recognizable and practical urban spaces. Inside them, residents trade food, clothing, household goods, tools, and supplies carried across enormous distances. The market is unexpectedly touching because every ordinary object has survived a difficult journey before reaching someone's hands. Water, power, heating, repairs, and medical access all carry complications created by altitude and remoteness. Dust moves easily through the streets, while snow can redraw the same settlement into a nearly colorless geometry. Against those conditions, schools, homes, and daily greetings give Murghab a quiet determination stronger than its exposed streets. Travelers may see a final supply point, while residents see birthdays, classrooms, friendships, losses, and the center of home. Northward, the highway crosses even emptier country before a dark blue basin appears beneath pale mountains. That basin is Karakul, where geological time and present-day village life occupy the same exposed shore. Karakul lies at approximately 3,923 meters, filling a vast closed basin in the northern Pamirs. It is the Pamir's largest lake by surface area and one of the world's highest large saline lakes. The surrounding circular depression has been interpreted as an ancient meteorite impact structure formed millions of years ago. No river carries the lake toward an ocean, so water and minerals remain enclosed within the basin. From above, its blue surface appears almost unreal against gray ridges, salt-edged shores, and treeless plains. Wind can roughen the water within minutes, replacing perfect reflections with cold metallic movement. Karakul feels most haunting at the shoreline, where astonishing beauty provides neither warmth nor shelter. The village stands nearby with low houses, straight roads, and a scale dwarfed by the open basin. Residents live with altitude, limited agriculture, severe winters, and long journeys for specialized goods and services. Livestock and road traffic connect the settlement to a wider economy that remains vulnerable to weather. At sunset, the mountains warm briefly, while the village falls into shadow much earlier. That unequal light brings a quiet sadness, because the landscape offers beauty generously while withholding comfort completely. Then chimney smoke, or children crossing the road, returns the ancient basin to the fragile scale of a single evening. Karakul is not empty at all. It is a demanding place patiently made livable again with every winter. The Pamir villages occupy river terraces, alluvial fans, and rare pockets where water and soil can support settlement. Homes are commonly built low against wind, using stone, earth, timber, and carefully maintained roofs. Traditional Pamiri houses organize interior space around pillars, platforms, and a central opening that carries symbolic meaning. Rooms become warmer, darker, and more intimate after the enormous brightness of the road outside. Tea arrives quickly, followed by bread, dairy foods, soup, or whatever the household can generously provide. This hospitality can be profoundly moving, because distance makes generosity more costly and therefore more meaningful. Village life depends on irrigation channels, animal care, repairs, food storage, schooling, and seasonal preparation. Children may grow up learning both local languages and the wider skills needed beyond their valley. Migration supports many households, yet the money arriving home cannot fully replace the people who remain absent. Satellite connections and mobile phones bring new possibilities without eliminating the physical reality of isolation. Old customs do not survive here by remaining untouched. They survive by making room for necessary change. The balance offers hope, but it also carries sadness whenever a skill survives only in the memory of elders. Beyond the houses, herds move toward pasture and show how village survival extends far into the surrounding mountains. Following those animals reveals a pastoral world governed by seasons, altitude, and constant attention. Across the high Pamirs, herders guide sheep, goats, cattle, and yaks toward grazing, shaped by season and altitude. Some eastern communities maintain Kyrgyz pastoral traditions, moving animals between settlements, camps, and temporary summer pasture. The apparent freedom of open grazing hides a demanding schedule of milking, guarding, birthing, treating, and counting. Every animal represents food, fiber, transport, income, and security within an environment offering few alternatives. Herders study grass height, snow cover, water, wind, and the physical condition of each group. The most affecting image may be the quietest, one rider waiting without impatience while the herd gradually settles. That stillness reveals trust, built through countless ordinary days, not affection arranged for a camera. Yaks tolerate cold and elevation particularly well, carrying loads and providing products essential to highland households. Goats and sheep reach rougher ground, but grazing pressure must be balanced against the slow recovery of vegetation. Predators, disease, storms, and blocked routes can turn a normal season into a sudden household crisis. Children often learn animal care early, absorbing knowledge through observation, correction, and daily responsibility. Motorcycles and vehicles now assist some movements, yet fuel and mechanical failure introduce new vulnerabilities. At dusk, dust and breath briefly surround the animals before the cold closes over the pasture. Their collective movement feels comforting until the falling temperature reveals how little separates warmth from danger. Lower valleys transform that pastoral knowledge into another rhythm of fields, orchards, irrigation, and rural family life. Rural Tajikistan gathers around water because every orchard, vegetable plot, and wheat field depends on careful distribution. Villages follow rivers or irrigation channels, forming ribbons of green beneath dry and sharply rising mountains. Apricot, apple, mulberry, and walnut trees provide food, shade, income, and a visible measure of seasonal change. Bread preparation, harvesting, animal care, and household work connect family routines with the agricultural calendar. After the high desert, the first orchard can feel deeply emotional, restoring color, shade, fragrance, and the promise of plenty. That green relief, however, is produced by maintenance, labor, and knowledge accumulated across generations. Many households also depend on income earned elsewhere, linking remote villages to cities and foreign labor markets. Remittances pay for education and repairs, but every transfer can carry the unspoken weight of someone missing from home. Schools, clinics, roads, clean water, and reliable power remain unevenly accessible in some rural districts. These challenges should not reduce villagers to symbols of hardship, because their lives also contain humor and celebration. Courtyards fill with relatives, tea circulates, and meals turn limited ingredients into expressions of welcome. That warmth feels most powerful when nobody announces it, because welcome has already entered the household's ordinary rhythm. Rural life carries Tajikistan's agriculture, but it also preserves gestures, recipes, stories, and social obligations. Those values become more visible when music, clothing, food, and festival traditions gather under the wider idea of culture. Tajik culture grows from Persian language and literature, regional diversity, Islamic traditions, and centuries of Central Asian exchange. Poetry remains unusually present in public life, with Rudaki and later writers shaping national memory and identity. Hospitality is expressed through the Dasturkhan, where tea, bread, fruit, sweets, and conversation create a shared social space. Oshi Palav carries particular importance, joining rice, vegetables, spices, and meat with gatherings and communal responsibility. UNESCO recognized the meal's social and cultural traditions in Tajikistan as intangible heritage in 2016. Wakhan embroidery transforms cloth through vivid floral and symbolic patterns, preserving skills passed between generations. Music introduces another emotional vocabulary through frame drums, lutes, singing, dance, and regionally distinct performance traditions. Navruz welcomes spring with food, visits, games, music, and the renewal of household and community bonds. These traditions feel most alive when families still need them for celebration, mourning, hospitality, and belonging. Pamiri customs add further layers through languages, house symbolism, devotional practices, and mountain-specific forms of hospitality. Dushanbe spreads across a broad valley, offering greenery, traffic, monumental avenues, and construction after the austerity of the Pamirs. Its name means Monday, recalling the weekly market around which the earlier settlement developed. The city became Tajikistan's capital during the Soviet period and expanded rapidly through planned streets and public institutions. Rudaki Avenue connects parks, museums, theaters, administrative buildings, and spaces designed for national ceremony. Summer generally offers the most practical conditions for high Pamir travel, although weather can change abruptly at any elevation. Check current visa or visa-free rules through an official Tajik diplomatic source before booking the journey. Travelers entering Gorno-Badakhshan may require separate authorization, which can be requested with an electronic visa when applicable. Use an experienced driver, a capable vehicle, spare tires, fuel reserves, and flexible time on remote roads. Ascend gradually when possible, remain attentive to altitude symptoms, and carry adequate water, layers, and sun protection. Cash is essential outside major centers, while mobile coverage, banking, electricity, and fuel availability can be inconsistent. Confirm border restrictions and road conditions locally, because landslides, floods, snow, or security measures can alter routes. Respect homestay customs, request permission before photographing people, and obtain insurance covering remote medical evacuation. Tajikistan leaves more than mountain images behind. It leaves the memory of people who keep choosing life at impossible heights. Its deepest beauty lives in small gestures: bread divided, tea poured, animals gathered, and a warm room open to strangers. The Pamirs remind us that endurance is not hardness alone, but love repeatedly reorganized around distance, winter, and uncertainty. If this journey touched or surprised you, please like the video and share it with someone drawn to hidden worlds. Tell us which place moved you most, and subscribe to World Untold so we can continue discovering together. When the final road disappears into evening, Tajikistan remains in the heart like a question the mountains have not finished asking.